This is the YouTube channel for Open Doors Metropolitan Community Church in Seoul, Korea. Welcome. We are a community seeking to live out the radically inclusive love of Jesus Christ. We are affiliated with the Progressive Christian Alliance and Metropolitan Community Churches. Please join us now for excerpts from the service held on Sunday, September 20th, 2015, the 16th Sunday after Pentecost. The preacher, Craig Bartlett, continued in the series Lessons from Creation, and on this Sunday, the focus was simplicity.
God of love, you invite us to listen, that we might learn from your ways, hear the voices of the vulnerable, and welcome all in your name. Open our hearts to honestly share our hopes, our fears, and our confusion with you, that we might be changed and made new. We pray in and through Jesus, your anointed one, by the power of your Holy Spirit. Amen. The first lesson comes from the letter of James, chapter 3, beginning to read at the 13th verse. As is our custom, if there is a volunteer who would be willing to read. Thank you.
Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be boastful and false to the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace.
The Gospel comes from the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 9, beginning to read at the 30th verse. They went on from there and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him. And 3 days after being killed, he will rise again." But they did not understand what he was saying and were afraid to ask him. Then they came to Capernaum. And when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent. For on the way they had argued with one another who was the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." And then he took a little child and put it among them. And taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." We shouldn't deceive ourselves about the place of children in the social communities of Jesus' day. These communities did not conjure up the dewy-eyed pictures of angelic innocence that we often love to project into readings like that. The Lutheran pastor, Amy Allen, reminds us that in both Jewish and Roman communities, children were valued because they represented the future. Carriers of the family name, carers for aging parents, producers of the next generation. However, in their childhood, they were also seen as liabilities. They were more likely to die from illness and were not yet fully contributing to the economy of the household. An adult slave had more production ability at that moment, yet would never become truly a member of the household the way a child was. Allen refers to them as insiders on the outside. And it's also important to remember that in ancient societies, it wasn't uncommon for families who did not have the financial or food resources to feed another mouth, or simply wished to not have an undesired child, in those days usually a girl, to abandon their newborn children on the local rubbish heap. And therefore, even though it seems that Jewish families did this much less frequently than Gentile ones, it's something that the people in Mark's community would have been familiar with. And so the idea for Jesus to welcome the child would have been unique, would have been difficult to understand for some, jarring for others. And yet these days we love to appeal to the simplicity of the child's way of thinking. It's so attractive to us these days. And perhaps one of the best distillations or summaries of children's wisdom was that put forward by the Unitarian Universalist minister Robert Fulgham. And I think it was his first book, and certainly his most well-known one. All I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. What's the name of the book? And he writes, all I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of the graduate school mountain, but there in the sand pile at school. These are the things I learned, he writes. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hurt people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. When you go out in the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down, and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows why, but we're all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die. so do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane books, and the first word you learned, the biggest word of all, look. It's all excellent wisdom for the world to live by. So we might ask ourselves, well, how the hell did life get so complicated? Well, that's something we can talk about in our discussion. But what I see around us today are two extremes. On one hand, we have endless complexity. And on the other hand, we have a simplicity which, call it what it is, it's rooted in fear. And it's manifested in discrimination and hatred and divisiveness and claims of entitlement. To demonstrate the endless complexity, I have a couple of things that have come out of that tragic picture that we've no doubt all seen on the newspapers, in the media. The story, the tragic story of Aylan Kurdi, the Syrian child whose lifeless body, washed up on a beach in Turkey, gave such a tragic face to the Syrian refugee crisis. One of the things I heard was the response of the government of my home country, Canada. And how Stephen Harper, the Prime Minister, talked about how, oh yes, this image can rip our hearts out, but we can't base our response to the Syrian refugee crisis on our reaction to this picture, and that we've got to have the multi-pronged response, which includes military action. And that Canada was doing so much important work on the Syrian refugee file. Something which has been fact-checked, as I can say, and has been largely disproved. And that more actions would be announced soon. He said that a week and a half ago, and Canadians are still waiting. The other story that I discovered it just last night came from a cover from the famous, or infamous, as you might say, French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. It was in response to the Aylan Kurdi drowning. Now, I didn't put that up here today. I didn't put that cover up here today because I just thought, okay, I don't want to, because it's controversial as it is. But I'll try to describe it to you. The cover showed a drawing reproducing the picture of Aylan's body with the caption "Si près du but," which is French for "so close to his goal." And in the background, the cartoonists put up a billboard featuring a picture of Ronald McDonald and the promotion of a special deal saying 2 kids Happy Meals for the price of 1. Now, some have interpreted this as insulting and making light of Aylan Kurdi's death. And I can understand where that reaction comes from. I have to admit that having sat with that picture for a while, that I don't see it quite in that way. I think it holds out a challenge to the Western world. A challenge which says, yes, Aylan Kurdi and his family wanted to get to Canada, to the West, freedom, but what would they have found when they got there? They would have had to find their freedom in a Western world which is at the same time rabidly individualist, yet also corporatist and capitalist at the same time. They'd have to find it in a place where food isn't really considered real unless it has a mascot. So that's one side. On the other side, if we look, what's being offered to us as simplicity these days? Well, we got plenty of people who are willing to offer us simplicity. Perhaps the most recent example of simplicity that's being offered to us these days is in the rantings of a person who says Mexicans are rapists, immigrants are taking away people's jobs, real war heroes are the ones who don't get caught, and let's take out the military on anyone who challenges America on the world stage, and anyone who disagrees with me is either stupid, on her period, or some other kind of loser. Really, we shouldn't be surprised by the bluster of people like Donald Trump. Because in reality, he's simply the end product of years of intolerance and intemperance and dumbing down. And we can trace it back through Glenn Beck and Ann Coulter and the so-called Pact with America in the 1990s, the things like the Reagan years and the Iran-Contra operations. Oh, by the way, my favorite personal name for that scandal was Iran Amok. And I think you could make an argument probably all the way back to the Watergate cover-up. Because let's remember, put aside the dramatic moment that Richard Nixon had with David Frost in his interview series in '77. Richard Nixon, to his death, said that he truly believed that he fundamentally never did anything wrong or illegal, and that it was fair and appropriate to take covert action against those whom he saw as his enemies. So there, complexity on one hand, and this kind of negative simplicity on the other. And against all this, Jesus, in our lesson for today, holds a child. The original Greek uses the word which can be interpreted as holding, embracing. And he used that same Greek word is used later on, so we can interpret what Jesus says. You know, Jesus holds a child, and that he says is to hold a child is to hold the Christ, to hold the anointing presence that can make our lives whole, and ultimately, to hold a child is to hold God. In effect, he's saying this is the wisdom our world needs. The wisdom of selflessness and peacefulness that we heard echoed in the letter of James today, our lesson from James. By the way, for those who have trouble with the letter of James, saying that it doesn't really talk about justification by grace through faith, blah, 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 I would invite you to compare the devilish vices and the virtues of wisdom from today's reading with the works of the flesh versus the fruits of the Spirit that Paul wrote about in the letter to the Galatians. You find it in Galatians 5. When I looked at that, I saw some similarities. I invite you to look at that look similarly. Find a Bible or get online and find a translation of Scripture, whatever, and take a look at it for yourselves. But the message is that is the wisdom we need. Is the wisdom embodied in a YouTube video I saw last week of a child somewhere is having maybe his first or second birthday party. I didn't really turn on the audio for it, but you could get the story behind it. He was obviously Mexican American or Mexican Latin American because he was given a stick and he was invited to beat the crap out of a piñata, you know, like you usually do at special times of the year. He tries doing it a couple of times and he puts the stick down and he just hugs the thing. Now, our initial reaction is to just go, "Aw, isn't that sweet?" But how many of us would be willing to think for a moment and say, you know, he's on to something. He's got it figured out in a way we don't. And if we read the list of kindergarten virtues listed by Robert Fulgham, is our reaction just to say, how cute? Or is it to look for, to take those virtues in? Because as he writes on later, and I quote from him, everything you need to know is in there somewhere. The golden rule, and love, and basic sanitation. Ecology, and politics, and equality, and sane living. Take any one of those items and extrapolate it into sophisticated adult terms and apply it to your family life or your work or government or your world, and it holds true and clear and firm. Think what a better world it would be if we all, the whole world, had cookies and milk at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then lay down with our blankets for a nap. I say Robert Fulgham gets a lot more than just equality there. He talks about food security, the right to shelter, human rights, security of the person. He covers everything there. Or to go back to him. Or if all governments had as a basic policy to always put things back where they found them and to clean up their own mess. It's not in our own efforts to make life more complex or to simplify things down to a right to fulfill our own wants that's going to save us or the world. It's the simplicity of the way of a child.
Thanks for checking us out online. Better yet, why not check us out in person? All are welcome to join us in our worship and our ministry. We worship at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings in the Hebanchon district in Seoul. For more information about us, our location, and our ministry activities, please check our website at www.opendooorskorea.org. We hope to see you soon.